Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight for our return for our biweekly guided meditation and Dharma talk. We were off for the past 3 weeks or so doing some mindfulness exploration, meeting new and wonderful practitioners from all around the area, and so we had a little bit of time off to go visit and to rebalance ourselves as well. And so we're delighted to come back for our bi-weeklies, guided meditations and Dharma talk. So every 2 weeks on a Monday evening at 6 p.m. we'll be here. And so again, welcome and thank you if you have not joined us before. You even notice a new introduction, right? So we spent this time mindfully preparing and updating and being connected in tune with, changing circumstances with the world as well. So today is July 22nd at 6 p.m. here in the Central Time Zone. I like to make the reference. Could be different where you are, right? Different time zone, it'll be different, or perhaps you're watching this on the replay. So before we begin, just some brief announcements as well. In our newsletter, we have a new mindfulness advice column and suggestions on ways that, maybe if you have questions on how you can perfect or nurture your own mindfulness practice, whether it's with yourselves or families or work or whatnot, go ahead and submit your question directly to our email, and we will put it in, keeping your anonymity. Did I say that right? Anonymity. You will remain anonymous, but we'll address your question for others to, maybe they're having similar situations as well. Our weekly sanghas, right? Healing in our veteran sangha, our new beginning sangha, our rainbow sangha, welcoming sangha, and our teen sangha, right? You can go ahead and just register and find one of those sanghas that suit your specific needs or whatever you like, and come join us and we'll just sit and talk. Our upcoming retreat, our refuge retreat, is on July 26th. That's a free retreat, right, for survivors of domestic violence and so forth. So come up. It's the 26th and 27th. So it's a Friday night at 7 p.m. till Saturday afternoon, usually around 3:30 or 4 o'clock is usually when we can conclude the refuge retreats. And then our mindfulness and meditation retreat is on Sunday, on the 28th at 8:30 a.m. We also have some very exciting news that will be taking place in 2025 with our Renew Humanity Tour 2025. And that is a worldwide Dharma talk, right? We are more than happy to come visit you at your location to talk about the Dharma and how we can practice Buddha's teachings of compassion and love and empathy to help reunite with all the troubles and all the strife and the conflicts and the dissatisfaction and the disillusionment that we all feel. That message has certainly been lost, especially with, the way we are all connected in the world today. And so there is no charge, right? There is no speaker fee. There are other fees that may be associated with the travel, but I don't charge to come visit you, not at all. And so we'll spend the day, whatnot, whatever groups you like, whether it's a church or a synagogue or a mosque, a civic group, whatever you like. I'll come and visit. We will talk about the Dharma and how we can all improve ourselves, because we're all people. We all have the same wants and desires and fears and desires. And so if I already said desires, but we all have those same feelings that we want well for us and our loved ones. And so this will be a great way to incorporate that, to talk about that message. So we'll begin with the 3 jewels as we continue. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. and I take refuge in the Sangha. And so we start off with the three jewels as respect to the Buddha, respect to his teachings, the Dharma, and respect to the Sangha, the community, which is you. Right? You're part of the community. And so that is our way of paying respect to you as well. So tonight's talk, did the Buddha have enemies? It's a fascinating question, right? Sometimes we think that somebody who is just filled with infinite kindness and love and compassion, how can they have enemies? And we'll even make that comparison to even Jesus as well, right? Another person who certainly had great compassion and love and enemies as well. But before we begin, or before we move on to our Dharma talk, we'll have our guided meditation. A wonderful guided meditation for well-being for those that wish us ill will. And it's important for us to consider them, right? Consider people who wish us ill will, just like the Buddha had enemies, or even Jesus, right? Or other kind religious leaders, or other people, just kind people in general. Even they have enemies. So go ahead and let's begin by taking a moment to settle our bodies into a comfortable position. And you may close your eyes or keep them slightly open with a soft focus looking downward a few feet in front of you if you choose. Breathe in. Pause. And breathe out. And as you sit there, you are warmly invited to allow a half smile to rest on your face as well. Allow your spine to lift and your shoulders to soften. And soften your belly as you continue settling in. Breathe in. Pause. And breathe out. And let's meditate on offering well-being for those that wish us ill will. As mindfulness practitioners, we know that there is a great deal of suffering in this world. Everything from physical body pain, mental anguish, and to the misunderstanding that conditions are permanent. And we know, as a mindfulness practitioner, that sometimes an individual's suffering may spill over towards others, even towards those that are filled with abundant compassion and love. They may even want to harm you or cause ill will towards you at every turn. And as a mindfulness practitioner, we know that this person has great suffering within and is ill. People who are well do not wish even the slightest harm towards another. Breathe in. Pause. And breathe out. When we come across a person who continuously wants to cause suffering in our lives, let us view them as a very dear loved one that is terminally ill. When someone that we love dearly is terminally ill, we know that fear is present in their minds, and that oftentimes hurtful words and actions are committed as a result of this fear. We do not get angry when they behave this way, because we know that they are ill and that underneath they are kind and loving. We do not chastise them. Instead, we open our hearts towards them. We are compassionate towards them. We are forgiving of them. And we love them. It is with this warm and compassionate mindful awareness that we offer the same loving response towards those that wish to cause us ill will. For they too are ill. We may say to ourselves, let our compassion towards all living beings be as boundless as the universe itself. Go ahead and open your eyes. Readjust your bodies if you need to, and be mindful of your surroundings. Yeah, it's hard sometimes, isn't it? Offering compassion and understanding, and certainly wishing someone who causes us pain and suffering, and who is just perhaps very malaligned towards us. It's very hard to maybe want to offer them compassion. So we may even consider them an enemy to some degree, right? Always after us. So that meditation is very much in line with what the Buddha thought. So I'll kind of fast forward a little bit, kind of let this, we'll take it to the end a little bit, but there'll be a lot of story in the middle. So did the Buddha have enemies? He did not. He may have had people after him, right? He may have had, especially one in particular, right? We'll get to him. And there may have been others that have, maybe wanted to challenge him or perhaps humiliate him, to shoot him down, right? Right. But the Buddha never thought of them as enemies because his heart, his understanding is filled with love and compassion, and knowing that people who want to hurt someone else, that they too are hurt. Right? Hurt people hurt people. So he understood that so far. So the Buddha did not have enemies, even though there were probably a select few who wanted to see harm come to him. So the Buddha, upon achieving enlightenment, we'll kind of get into the story, right? A little bit more into the Dharma talk. The Buddha, upon achieving enlightenment, he was filled with peace and love and compassion and empathy towards all living beings, right? And what he taught, the Dharma, right, was very revolutionary, right? It changed the whole paradigm of what religion and their society was, right, back in India and so forth, or present day India. Changed the whole paradigm of the way their society interacted, thought, and viewed one another, right? His message was all inclusive, that no one was above or below anyone else. And there was no caste system, right, or discrimination. People were treated compassionately, whether they were wealthy, whether they were middle class, or whether they were poor, whether they were male or female, or a merchant, a soldier, didn't matter. Doesn't matter. So Buddha's message was very revolutionary back in the day. And so whenever there is a revolutionary or an idea that really changes the paradigm, right, the operating structure of whether it's a society or a group of people, it can be received with fear. It's change, right? Very often, it's not change that's hard. It's the resistance to change that makes it hard. And so even the religious scholars and the citizenry back in the day of in this location, right, where he was, were fearful of it. Right? Perhaps maybe not so much the people on those bottom tiers, right? They were certainly very happy, but the people who felt that they had something to lose. So that causes a lot of animosity and fear and so forth. So, but the main antagonist for Buddha, right? Again, Buddha did not have enemies. People may not have liked him, right? Buddha was filled with compassion and love. Devadatta, right? Perhaps you've read of him, right? Devadatta. So very close to Buddha, right? Very close. Certainly one of his disciples and so forth. Kind of on the devious side, kind of his gadfly, right? If you're familiar with that term, the antagonist of the Sangha, of the group. Devadatta approaches, so there's another prince in the area, right? Prince Ajahatsuru, right? Who is heir to the throne of Magadha, right? Another kingdom over there. And Devadatta was very impressed with this prince. Just really wanted to be there. And he knew that there was a good relationship between Devadatta and the prince, right? They knew there was a good relationship. And the prince wanted to become Devadatta's disciple, right? Thought that he had something to offer and really enjoyed, his company and his teachings and so forth. And so the prince began to send Devadatta all these gifts, all of these offerings to Devadatta. What happens when somebody bestows riches and accolades, right, towards you? Right? Sometimes you can get a little egocentric, right? A little arrogant and so forth. And Devadatta became very obsessed with his own worth. Look at me. Look what all I've got. I've got all this stuff. And he began to believe. So Devadatta began to believe that he, instead of Buddha, should lead the Sangha. And he began, several attempts to usurp, right, to challenge and take over the Sangha away from the Buddha. Buddha gets wind, right? What's going on? Devadatta is getting all of these offerings and realizes that, it's these offerings, it's the riches and so forth that are really leading Devadatta down the wrong path, right? Going towards his own destruction to not to be able to achieve the liberation and enlightenment that the Dharma teaches. Devadatta asks Buddha, well, let me take over. You should retire. You're getting up there in age. Remember, Buddha lived to be, up in his 80s and so forth. And so maybe kind of approaching Buddha like he cares and being sincere and so forth, asking him to leave, right? Step down, let somebody else take over. Let him take over the Sangha. But he didn't. Buddha did not let anybody lead the Sangha except him, not even his most trusted disciples like Sariputta. Right? So Buddha kept that his leadership, with him until his passing. When his passing came, certainly somebody had to take over, right? And as a result, Buddha expelled Devadatta from the group, from the Sangha, right? Cast him out. And warned that the Sangha that Devadatta was leading is getting worse, right? It's changed for the worst, right? His own, or it would lead to the worst, right? If Devadatta took leadership. And so seeing the danger in this, Devadatta went back to the prince. So there's a lot of undertones to this, right? It's not just a straightforward question or description. It goes back to the prince, right? It asks him, kill the Buddha, right? Straightforward. Devadatta asks the prince to kill the Buddha. In most people's mindsets, right, that would certainly make them an enemy, right? Yeah, somebody may be a little devious and sneaky and try to slide in some power and so forth, but if somebody were to make an attempt on your life, you would absolutely consider them an enemy. But he wasn't going to do it himself, so he hired some mercenaries, right? And then mercenaries to kill those mercenaries to keep this really a big secret. But when those mercenaries came to Buddha, they fell in love with him. They appreciated his teachings. And lo and behold, they actually ended up being his disciples as well. Because that's what love and compassion and understanding towards all living beings, that's the reward. People can see that. Like people who are open to those visions, open to being well received. Devadatta, not so much, right, at this time. Devadatta tried to kill Buddha with a rock, right? Buddha's walking, right? Just walking by himself in his mindful meditation, right? In his walking meditation. Devadatta gets up on this cliff and rolls this rock to him, but it misses. Right? It misses him, and nothing happens to Buddha himself. Another time, Devadatta did not quit. Another time, he finds his elephant, right? They're in the village and there's an elephant, and he gets the elephant intoxicated and antagonized, right? And so he's very agitated, and he releases him towards the Buddha, right, to try to trample him. Not going to happen. Stop. Right? Stop. And so the Buddha stops this elephant, which just has love and compassion. The aura of enlightenment surrounds him, that nothing would want to harm him. Right? Even though there may be those evil intentions to, but it doesn't come to fruition because Buddha did not have enemies, or he did not view someone as an enemy. It's infinite compassion. And so, even after all these attempts, a little more to the story, Devadatta actually even tried to introduce some new rules, several new rules into the Sangha, that the monks should only eat alms food, right? Never take an invitation to someone's home, or that they should only wear rags, right? No new clothing, only hand-me-downs that are ripped and torn, and that they should only live under a tree and not in huts or anything like that. And Buddha, no, that's a rule, right? That's an exclusion, right? The middle path, right? So, but even after all those transgressions that Devadatta did towards the Buddha, he loved him immensely. Right? Never had any hatred or malice towards him. And that can be hard. Right? Learning that lesson, right? Trying to practice that can be hard sometimes, especially in our society. Right? We feel that if somebody hurts us, we have to hurt them back. Right? Maybe even when we respond with a little sarcasm, right? And so forth. Not that we would necessarily, want to cause harm or so forth, but oftentimes we just think that way, right? So it's a lesson that we can all practice and try to incorporate as mindfulness practitioners, to live that wholesome and a righteous life. And even when somebody wants to hurt us, right, we open our hearts and our minds, and we can even bring up the saying from Jesus, right? When your enemy strikes you on one cheek, you offer them the other, right? So Buddha had that same message: infinite compassion, boundless compassion towards everyone. So something to think about, especially in the world that we live in today, where it's just filled with sorrow and anger, and thinking that revenge or getting back or a clap back, right, will make you feel good about yourself. But that truly only just perpetuates that cycle of suffering. And as mindfulness practitioners and Buddhist practitioners, we want to end that. So it starts with us. It starts with us. Well, I want to thank you all for your kind and mindful attentions this evening as we talked about this. This is a really interesting subject and in consideration, about the Buddha. And did he have enemies? Again, no, he did not. Right? He never viewed them that way. So we can try to aspire to be like that. And that's part of part of our Renew Humanity tour, which I mentioned in the beginning of our Dharma talk this evening, in which we will, again, gladly come to your location and help plant that seed of loving kindness and compassion and charity and service towards others. So our next talk will be on August 5th. So same time, right? 6 p.m. on the Central Time Zone, and we look forward to seeing you then. And we'll end with our 3 jewels. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. And I take refuge in the Sangha. Sathu, Sathu, Sathu. Many blessings to you all, and I greatly appreciate you spending some of your precious time with me tonight. Many blessings to you all.